Developing right now on Morning News Now, takeover tension in the nation's capital. President Trump declaring a public safety emergency and sending hundreds of National Guard troops to the streets of D.C. in what he calls an attempt to rescue the city from out-of-control crime.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Now, growing criticism as statistics show violent crime in the area is down. We will take you to Washington. Also developing tragedy in Texas this morning. 3 people, including a child, shot and killed in a busy Target store parking lot. And in Pennsylvania, new information about a deadly explosion at a steel factory. We'll bring you the latest. Plus, it's a major breakthrough that could save lives. Researchers say they have found a one-size-fits-all vaccine to keep pancreatic cancer from coming back. What it could mean for millions of patients. We're going to begin this Tuesday morning with President Trump's unprecedented decision to deploy about 800 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., as well as federalize the Metropolitan Police Department to combat what the president calls a city that has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals.
Now, a White House official tells NBC News to expect Guard troops on the ground in D.C. today. This decision coming despite violent crime in Washington being down 26% compared to last year. According to the D.C. Home Rule Act, the president has 48 hours now to explain his reasoning for taking control of the police to Congress. The law says he can take control for 30 days unless Congress authorizes an extension. Now, speaking from the White House briefing room yesterday, President Trump explained his decision to take action.
We're formally declaring a public safety emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. They'll immediately begin massive enforcement operations targeting known gangs, drug dealers, and criminal networks to get them the hell off the street, maybe get them out of the country, because a lot of them came into our country illegally.
Now, in just a second here, Danny Cevallos will walk us through the legal foundation of the president's plan to take over D.C. police. But let's begin first with NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba and Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. Good morning to you both here. Monica, we just heard a little bit from the president explaining what he's targeting with this takeover of the D.C. Police Department. This is a significant shift in the White House's relationship with the city. Help us understand, why is this happening now?
Well, Aaron, this is something that the president had mused about, had floated for a couple of months, indicating there could be a federal takeover of the nation's capital. But it really took a more aggressive stance and approach when, about a week and a half ago, a former DOJ employer was involved in an attempted carjacking, and he was injured, according to a police report. And that then made the president decide he wanted to take this additional action to federalize the police department and to announce hundreds of National Guard troops that are going to be on the ground today and in this sort of support role for other law enforcement agents that were drawn from more than 18 different agencies. So the president says for him, it's personal, that this is something he finds, quote, embarrassing when world leaders or people visit D.C. and they say they see rampant crime. But of course, the police data and even the Department of Justice tells a different story with their statistics. We know right now, actually, there's a 30-year low in violent crime in Washington, D.C., and that's not to say that crime isn't an issue, but this is one and a picture that the president is painting that doesn't completely line up, at least with the facts that we know. After there was a post-pandemic spike, they have come down, but the president himself has now been dismissive of that data, calling it into question and saying that more needs to be done here, guys.
Let's bring in Ryan Nobles. He's on the streets of D.C. for us this morning. Ryan, walk us through what this rollout of the National Guard, what does it actually look like over the coming days, potentially weeks, there on the streets of D.C.?
Yeah, we have somewhat of a playbook that the president could be operating under based on how he used the National Guard to respond to the situation in Los Angeles. It will likely be a limited number of troops that will be on the streets of Washington, D.C. They probably will be very visible, more than anything, to send a sign of what the president intends to do in terms of this criminal crackdown. Roughly will be around 800 National Guard troops, but they won't be in a front-facing role. Their job will be more to support the existing law enforcement agencies on the ground. But the president made it clear he is willing to use the National Guard to do whatever it takes to get to his goal of trying to make D.C. a more safe place. Take a listen.
This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed, by the way.
And of course, there has been quite a bit of criticism that the president was so swift to bring in National Guard troops to deal with this situation when he appeared to be very slow to do a similar response during the riots of January 6 on the United States Capitol. Of course, other Democrats being very critical that taking this military step to deal with a local crime problem is out of the ordinary and could lead to a slippery slope. This is something the president is shaking off and believes it's something that's necessary given the situation here in Washington, D.C., guys.
And Monica, we also heard from D.C.'s mayor, Muriel Bowser, yesterday, and she defended the city's work on crime over the last couple of years. What's her reaction to this federal takeover?
Yeah, she called this overall plan unprecedented and unsettling. She said that she wasn't briefed on what the president was going to announce in advance, but she ultimately said that she would try to work with him in any way possible. But she definitely pushed back on that narrative, and specifically on the idea that the president had argued that Washington could be compared to a war-torn city with its crime, which she really called ridiculous and said was not the case. Here's a little more of what she had to say about these new developments.
We're not a state. We don't control the D.C. National Guard. We don't have senators or full autonomy. Limited home rule gives the federal government the ability to intrude on our autonomy in many ways. I'm going to work every day to make sure it's not a complete disaster. Let me put it that way.
And again, that Home Rule Act that the mayor was referencing there is from the early 1970s, and that's what gives the president the authority to federalize the police department for 30 days. But after that, if he wants to extend it, he would need congressional approval. Guys.
Ryan, also, we understand the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, he says he's planning to introduce a bill to take action on this announcement. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. Jamie Raskin wants to adjust that home rule law that Monica was talking about to take the power of militarizing the National Guard to come into Washington, D.C. without the city's approval away from the president. They'd like to give more power to the D.C. political representatives who are voted on by the people of this city, as opposed to the control being in the hands of the White House and members of Congress who don't live in Washington, D.C. Keep in mind, though, the idea that that type of legislation would have any sort of movement in Congress right now is very unlikely, given the fact that Republicans control both the House and Senate. But on the other end of this, guys, it's important to keep in mind that once we get to that 30-day window, which the president has to try and deal with this situation, he would need congressional approval to do so. Even though Republicans have control of the House and the Senate, it would require a 60-vote threshold in the Senate, which would mean that Democrats would have to be involved in this. Right now, that there does not appear to be an appetite for this. So whatever the president wants to get done here likely will have to be done in that 30-day window, or else he's going to run into some stiff opposition from Democrats in Congress.
All right, Ryan Nobles and Monica Alba for us in Washington. Thank you both.
Well, for more on this, we are now bringing in NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos. Danny, good morning. So I want to touch on what Ryan was just saying right there at the end, kind of how this moves forward from here, what the rules are, the parameters for the president. Aaron mentioned at the top of the show this thing called the Home Rule Act, which is what's at play here. Explain that to us.
There are actually two very different agencies or entities involved here. One is the D.C. Metro Police, and the other is the National Guard. Now, when we talk about the D.C. Home Rule Act, that does allow the president to essentially take control of Metro Police from the mayor and essentially federalize them. And there are different stages, and I think Ryan covered some of these. He can do it automatically for 48 hours, 30 days with notice to Congress. And then after that, it has to be authorized by a majority of Congress. But the president, as long as he has a federal reason, can federalize the D.C. police. On the other hand, the D.C. National Guard, D.C., remember, is different. They do not have a governor. So the National Guard in D.C. really is never under the control of the mayor. And you saw her say that in her press conference. So as long as the president doesn't just get to deploy the National Guard at a whim. He does need a good reason. For example, a federal reason under the Insurrection Act, or a local state-like, and I'm doing air quotes, a state-like reason where other states could deploy their National Guard. So he does need a valid reason, but really presumptively, the commander-in-chief is the commander-in-chief of the D.C. National Guard.
And we heard the mayor sort of trying to give us a little bit of a civics lesson. I lived in D.C. for 12 years, so home rule is familiar. We know that the city just doesn't have the sort of autonomy that other states or even cities have. So for the mayor, when it comes to what the president is doing now, what are her options in terms of how she deals with this?
Very few when it comes to the National Guard, because as she pointed out and you pointed out, she was never in control of the D.C. National Guard. You may recall this was an issue during January 6th because the mayor of D.C. simply cannot wave her hand and deploy the National Guard. So separately on the Home Rule Act, really at this point, it's more Congress than the mayor controlling it, because she's right. The president can, for short periods of time especially, wrest control from the D.C. mayor. And really, it's Congress that's in a better position to stop it because, for example, they could choose not to reauthorize additional time of federalization of D.C. Metro Police.
And we're kind of mentioning this in Dancing Around it, but Danny, just kind of put a fine point on how this is unique to D.C., why it finds itself in the position between Congress and the White House.
Yeah, D.C. is this creation of the creation of our framers, the idea being that it does not have autonomy. It's designed to not have autonomy. It has very little in the way of voting rights. Yes, they can elect a mayor. They don't have a governor, but they're essentially under federal control, and they always have been. Congress exercises direct control over D.C. As we've seen, so too does the president. So D.C. residents really don't live in the United States as we've come to understand states' rights and everything else. They do have, to a degree, lesser rights, lesser voting representation than other residents of the United States. In fact, you could argue they're less than our U.S. territories, like the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. They really have less autonomy, even though they are within the continental United States. And we sort of think of them maybe as a state.
Danny Savalas, appreciate you as always. Great to have you in studio again.
A federal judge has denied the DOJ's request to unseal grand jury materials in the criminal case of convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. The Trump administration had pushed for more disclosures related to Maxwell and her co-conspirator, the deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In a scathing ruling yesterday, the judge said the release would risk, quote, unraveling the foundations of secrecy upon which the grand jury is premised. He also said that releasing the materials wouldn't reveal any new information of any consequence that wasn't already presented at Maxwell's trial. The judge said that materials don't identify anyone other than Epstein and Maxwell as having had sexual contact with a minor.
We are now just days away from the highly anticipated summit between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The leaders due to meet in Alaska on Friday for that high-stakes gathering that's aimed at bringing an end to the Ukraine war. Speaking at the White House yesterday, President Trump outlined his hopes for a deal with Russia, while at the same time downplaying the expected absence of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. You know, he's been there for 3.5 years, nothing happened. Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started.
NBC News International correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian joins us on this now. Danielle, good morning. So during that press conference, the president, he also raised the possibility of a land swap between Russia and Ukraine. Tell us about that. Tell us how optimistic also Mr. Trump seems just generally about getting a deal done.
Yeah, morning, guys. Trump said that this would be a meeting to, quote, feel out Putin, and that, as you just heard, he would know within the first 2 minutes if the Russian leader wants a deal. He's also repeated that there'll be some land swaps. In other words, that Ukraine would have to give up parts of its territory. That statement has alarmed U.S. allies here in Europe and in Ukraine, of course. Their position boils down to this. The aggressor, Russia, cannot be rewarded. Surrendering territory to Russia would only encourage more Russian aggression. There's been speculation about which regions exactly Trump has in mind. We'll perhaps find out more on Friday. But in the meantime, this is what the U.S. president had to say on this very issue.
It's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land, and the word that they will use is, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine.
Now, Trump also mentioned that he had been let down by Putin in the past and that the war could potentially continue after this meeting.
And Danielle, there is still some degree of uncertainty about whether President Zelensky will attend. It really does seem unlikely at this point. But what is his position on this upcoming meeting?
Yeah, as we speak, it doesn't look like he's going to be on the guest list for this meeting. However, Trump noted that he would immediately relay the details of his conversation to the Ukrainian leader. Zelensky has rejected the idea that his country should give up land to secure a ceasefire. He said that this is something that would require an amendment to the Constitution, something that seems to have annoyed the U.S. president. Zelensky, in fact, wants a ceasefire before negotiations can even begin, so they're not even agreeing on a starting point. In a post on X this morning, Zelensky claimed that Putin is not getting ready to end the war, but that Ukrainian intelligence suggests the Russian army is making preparations for a new offensive.
Also, Danielle, European leaders released a statement this morning. This was backing Ukraine's sovereignty. How worried are they about these talks? Do they have a message for President Trump heading into these conversations?
Yeah, the Europeans have been sidelined from this meeting, which they're not very happy about. They're also unhappy about the fact that Ukraine itself, the country that's been invaded, it will also not be there. EU leaders put out a statement this morning, an excerpt of which reads, "The people of Ukraine must have the freedom to decide their future. The path to peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without Ukraine." Now, tomorrow, on Wednesday, there'll be a series of virtual meetings, an emergency virtual summit, if you will. Donald Trump is expected to join some of those meetings that will include European leaders and Volodymyr Zelensky. It'll be their last chance to make their case collectively before Friday's summit. Guys, back to you.
All right, Danielle Hamamdjian in our London bureau. Danielle, thanks.
Thank you. Well, in Texas, 3 people, including a child, are dead after a man opened fire in the parking lot of a Target store in Austin yesterday. Investigators say the man then fled the scene in a stolen car before they were able to arrest him. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson is in Austin with the latest.
Yeah, good morning. Chaotic scenes in the parking lot of this North Austin Target yesterday afternoon, where police say 3 people were killed, including a child, after a gunman opened fire. We now know that the suspect is a 32-year-old male who police were able to take into custody a short while later. They say that he has a history of mental health issues and also a criminal record. We know that 911 calls came in yesterday afternoon, and police say that they arrived within minutes to find 3 people in this parking lot who had been shot. They say that the suspect likely fled in one of the vehicles of the victims. He then wrecked that vehicle and hijacked another. Take a listen to how police described what happened.
The suspect fled the scene, stole a car from the scene, took that car, wrecked that car, then hijacked another car.
Now, police say that they were eventually able to take the suspect down in South Austin by tasing him. This morning, we still have no public identification of the shooter or of the victims, and we are also waiting to learn more about a possible motive and the gun that was used and whether or not it was obtained legally. Back to you.
Priscilla Thompson for us in Austin. In Pennsylvania, 2 people are dead after an explosion at a steel factory outside Pittsburgh. We want to show you some video of Monday's explosion caught on camera here. You can see that black plume of smoke shooting into the sky there. The explosion happened just before 11 a.m. local time, and officials say at least 10 other people were hurt here. Now investigators are working to figure out the cause of that blast. NBC News correspondent Adrian brought us live in Clairton, Pennsylvania with the latest on this. Adrian, good morning.
Hey there, Aaron. Good morning to you. Well, I'll start with the latest, what we know right now. At least 5 people this morning are still listed in critical but stable condition. And late last night, we learned that the second person who was unaccounted for most of the day yesterday was pulled from the debris. Authorities have not identified that male worker, and they have not identified the other man who was killed in this blast. So a lot of heartbreak, as you can imagine, Aaron, this morning in the community. Now, we did speak with a woman who identified herself as the sister of one of the men she says was killed in the blast. She shared pictures with our affiliate WPXI, and she says that person was Timothy Quinn, but we have not yet heard from the medical examiner. If you look right now behind me, you can see that smoke is rising from the U.S. Steel plant here in Pennsylvania, about 20 miles or so outside of Pittsburgh. The plant is open and operating this morning, Aaron.
I do want to ask you a little bit more about the plant. I know it's been there for more than 100 years. What more can you tell us about the plant itself and where the investigation stands at this point?
You know, we heard from the mayor and city leaders yesterday, and they said the economy here depends on this plant. A third of the resources and the economy is fueled by this plant. It produces coke, which is a type of fuel used for steel making. As far as the investigation is concerned, it is just getting underway this morning. We still do not know what caused that explosion. Authorities telling us yesterday their main efforts were focused on search and recovery. But today they are assembling a team who will start interviewing and speaking with workers who were on site at the time of the incident. They want to know more about what they saw, what happened leading up to that explosion. Take a listen to what we heard from some of the representatives yesterday.
Our employees did a great job of making sure that we went in and rescued everybody that was involved, safely shut down all of the gases and utilities, and the plant is stable. But as I said, it is still an active investigation.
So again, just recapping for those who may not be familiar, 2 people died following the explosion. At least 10 people were sent to the hospital. 5 of them still listed in stable but critical condition this morning, and 5 others were released late yesterday, Aaron.
And Adrian, before I let you go, you said the plant is open. We understand that it is stable at this point, but what does this explosion mean for the folks who live around that area? Any lingering dangers for them?
Yeah, as you can imagine, many people were worried about what may be coming out of the plant. At one point, there was, out of an abundance of caution for folks living within 1 mile of the plant, they were told to keep all of their doors and windows closed. They were also told to set their HVAC systems so it could recirculate air. But according to the local health department here, air quality monitors have not detected a rise in levels of purities in the air that exceed federal standards. But that warning was issued for folks who live within a mile of the plant, just out of an abundance of caution, as you can imagine, Aaron.
All right, Adrian brought us for us in Western Pennsylvania. Thank you. Well, the summer heat is making a big comeback in some places. Temperatures rising from coast to coast. Let's take a look at what to expect with your Morning News Now weather. Meteorologist Angie Lassman joining us with that. And there's something for everybody, something not great, but something for everybody out there with the weather.
Yes, Aaron, especially if you're looking for some summertime heat. We've got that for sure across parts of the West, where we continue to see more than 20 million people under these heat alerts. And you can extend, it's not just the desert Southwest. We're talking up the coast and into parts of the Pacific Northwest. That heat wave continues. We've got heat warnings up for a good chunk of that region of the country. And it's no surprise. We've got temperatures into the 90s for Seattle. Those numbers running more than 10 degrees above normal for that time of year. We've got triple digits from Reno to Las Vegas and down to Tucson. And even on the eastern half of the country, from the Great Lakes to the Northeast and up into parts of New England, it's 90s. Those numbers, again, above normal. There's really not a whole lot of relief in sight for tomorrow. More of the same, essentially. It's the 90s, the triple digits for both of those same locations. And then we roll into the weekend with more of the same. You guessed it, temperatures very summer-like. We've got high 90s for Saturday in Nashville, mid-90s in Cincinnati and in Chicago. New York City, upper 80s to low 90s through the end of the work week and into the upcoming weekend. Because we've got a whole lot of sunshine and heat, that means those high surface ozone levels are high at the surface for parts of the Northeast, Boston, Hartford, New York included in that. And we've still got some Canadian wildfire smoke to deal with across the upper Midwest. So heads up there if you do have any respiratory issues. Meanwhile, we're watching the tropics. Not so worried about that tropical disturbance off the East Coast right now, but we will keep a close eye on Tropical Storm Erin. That developed yesterday. Right now, winds at 45 miles per hour, sitting just under 700 miles to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands. We're going to see this move at a pretty good clip. It has westward movement right now at 22 miles per hour. But notice what happens over the short term. Not a whole lot of intensification. It'll remain a tropical storm. And then maybe by Thursday, Friday, we'll see it become our first hurricane of the Atlantic season. And then potentially, Erin, a Category 3. It'll be worth watching for impacts to the Caribbean and, of course, the East Coast of the United States down the line.
Yeah.
No direct impacts expected right now. But again, we've got a long way out to watch.
I was going to say, this is really the part of the season where things really start to get cooking.
Yeah,
right?
You're exactly right. We're starting to get into that peak of hurricane season, the time where you want to have that plan and make sure that you have a way to get any updated information.
We got to get you some comfortable sneakers to,
yeah, you're right.
to run around here.
Good point.
Thanks a lot, Angie.
You got it.
Well, a new era is dawning for Taylor Swift, the pop superstar announcing a brand new album, The Life of a Showgirl. This is during an appearance on the New Heights podcast, of course, hosted by her significant other, Travis Kelce, and his brother, Jason. Now, you can already pre-order the album on Swift's website, even though there isn't a release date just yet for this. There was this cryptic countdown, the changed profile pictures, and these hints from the singer that she sent Swifties into a frenzy with leading up to the announcement.
What do we got?
We got
a briefcase.
Yep.
Mint green with TS on it.
Yep.
What's in it?
This is my brand new album, The Life of a Showgirl.
There were so many people screaming just like that the moment she did that dramatic reveal there. So this is Taylor's 12th studio album, her first release since gaining ownership of her entire music catalog. It also follows her record-breaking Eras tour, of course. It grossed more than $2 billion in ticket sales. We're going to talk more about this as the morning goes on here. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, back in the office. In-person attendance now at a post-pandemic high. What that trend could mean for companies and employees. Up first, though, after the break, growing outrage over the deaths of several journalists in Gaza. The latest coming up next. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans for an expanded offensive in Gaza sparking outrage at home and condemnation abroad. An association of Israeli Air Force reserve and retired pilots issuing a statement calling for a, quote, immediate end to the futile war. This comes after the deaths of 6 journalists who were killed by an Israeli airstrike. Israel claimed one of those reporters was part of Hamas, a claim that he and his employer have denied. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley has more.
Gazan journalists laying to rest several more of their own. Israel claimed the strike, accusing Al Jazeera reporter Anas al-Sharif of leading a Hamas terror cell, a charge he and Al Jazeera have repeatedly denied. Palestinian officials in Gaza say at least 238 journalists have been killed by Israel. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu plans to expand fighting in the Gaza Strip, saying he has no choice but to finish the job and defeat Hamas.
Our goal is not to occupy Gaza. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists.
Netanyahu's strategy would bring Israeli forces into camps housing hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians. The Prime Minister speaking with President Trump on Sunday, who he thanked for his steadfast support. Despite 2 weeks of aid being airdropped and trucked into Gaza, many suffering worsening hunger, Gazan officials now say more than 100 children have died from malnutrition. Israeli hostages' families now fearful the fighting could endanger their loved ones.
The blood will be on your hands.
Last night, Netanyahu once again denied there was hunger in the Gaza Strip and said reports of the deteriorating humanitarian situation there were exaggerated.
Colombian Senator and presidential hopeful Miguel Uribe has passed away months after a campaign attack in Colombia's capital. NBC's Matt Bodner joining us now with more on that and other headlines around the world in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Aaron, good morning. Uribe died in hospital yesterday, succumbing to wounds sustained during a shooting at a political rally back in June. The 39-year-old politician was shot 3 times, twice in the head, while giving a campaign speech at a park in Bogota. He had been in an intensive care unit in serious condition ever since. Police have not yet determined who ordered the hit or why. Moving along now to Spain, extreme heat and strong winds have sparked so-called fire whirls as part of an ongoing wildfires. Several houses were burned down and hundreds of people were forced to evacuate. This all took place in an area located nearby a UNESCO-listed national park in northern Spain. The smoke was too thick to deploy firefighting aircraft. And we'll wrap up in Bosnia, host of the 10th International Waterfall Diving Competition. The contest took place at the Pliva Waterfall in central Bosnia. Divers from around the world traveled to the waterfall to take part in the contest. Scoring focused on form and posture throughout the jump. This event has previously won awards for the top tourist events in the country. Back to you.
I was looking for a belly flop there, but I guess they take it seriously. It's real diving for them.
It's real diving, Aaron.
All right, Matt Bodner, thank you. Coming up, a potentially life-saving development in the fight against one of the deadliest forms of cancer. What we're learning about a vaccine that could keep pancreatic cancer from coming back. And we'll get some tips on beating the back-to-school blues for kids and parents. Your weekly check-in is next on Morning News Now. We are back with a potentially life-changing medical breakthrough for cancer patients, a one-size-fits-all vaccine that showed promise at preventing pancreatic cancer from coming back. The new clinical trial results were published yesterday. Pancreatic cancer, we know, is a major concern because its 5-year survival rate is only about 13%, and up to 80% of those cancers have a high potential to come back. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is here to break down the results of this trial for us. And I feel like the word game changer was made for this sort of a story. We know that this particular trial was made up of about 20 people with pancreatic cancer, 5 people with colorectal cancer. They all had standard treatment, chemo, surgery in many cases. They received 6 priming doses of this experimental vaccine. So walk us through the trial's timeline here. And what these results show.
Yeah, so what this trial was really looking at was whether or not giving patients who, as you said, underwent standard of care, chemotherapy and surgery, if they were administered this cancer vaccine, could this help to prevent recurrence and extend recurrence-free survival? And that's in fact what they found. You already told our viewers that the pretty dismal statistics for pancreatic cancer. And what they found is that the individuals who received the cancer vaccine, about 85% of them did mount the expected immune response that we wanted to see. And about 2/3 of them had such a robust immune response that was still detected months after they were administered this therapy. They extended their cancer-free survival to about 29 months. It was pretty amazing.
So help us understand, how does this vaccine work and how significant really is this in the broader picture?
I think for patients or viewers to understand sort of the concept of what a cancer vaccine does, if you think normally we give vaccines so that we mount an immune response to protect us against viruses and bacteria and things like that. In the case of a cancer vaccine, in this particular case, we're priming the immune system to recognize particular mutations that these cancer cells have. And that's what basically does. So you're basically introducing this little snippet of this genetic mutation, and now you've essentially triggered your immune system to be like a little army of surveillance, what we call T cells, looking for any cell that has that cancer mutation and killing it. Our immune system has the ability to kill cancer cells. And that's what we're doing here. We're basically exploiting that possibility from our immune system. And that's what it demonstrated here. The thing is that this was an early trial. Right? This was a phase 1, as you mentioned, 25 participants. It has to, we have to see this success move through phase 2 and phase 3 before we're talking about FDA approval for such a drug.
Help us understand some of the science of these cancers, right? Why has it been so difficult to find a successful, widely available cancer vaccine up to now?
Well, so first of all, cancer vaccine, the idea of it is newer. Like we talked about immunotherapy, which is sort of along the same lines of like taking the break off the immune system in order to kill cancer cells. Cancer vaccine technology is a little bit newer, and some cancers are just trickier, meaning that if you can identify one genetic mutation that you can target with the cancer vaccine, they see that and they immediately start working on another pathway. And so that's what's made it particularly challenging for certain cancers, but it's also why this is particularly great for patients with pancreatic cancer. And by the way, the mutation that this cancer vaccine is targeting, it's not specific to pancreatic or colorectal. It's seen in other cancers.
Okay.
And that's what makes this kind of unique. It's not personalized to the patient. It's actually what we call an off-the-shelf cancer vaccine that could theoretically be used in any cancer that has this genetic mutation.
Some good news for sure. To be,
Absolutely.
on this
Very
front.
promising.
Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you so much.
You bet.
Well, it is time now for our weekly mental health check-in. This week, we're diving into ways to support kids as they head back to school. Plus, new research shows how teaching kids about compassion could help them in unexpected ways. Let's bring in licensed marriage and family therapist Dr. George James to talk about these mental health headlines today. Dr. James, good morning. We appreciate you being here. We know that it is that time of year, right? Kids are heading back to school. Kids are already back in school in some places. And for a lot of them, it can be an exciting time. But there are some kids who really, this is a stressful time. There's anxiety, there's fear, even in some cases. What advice do you have for students who are navigating those sorts of emotions as they get back into the classroom, and for their parents, too?
Yeah, good morning, Aaron. Yes, this is a really high anxiety time for families all around. And for young kids, or even who goes to high school or maybe even college, the fear is there. So I want to encourage families to acknowledge that it is normal to feel a little bit of anxiety going into this new school year. Also, being able to come up with ways that you want to cope with some of the stress. Maybe practice some of it, maybe breathing, maybe talking it out, maybe ways that you can connect with those that you care about. You might also want to talk to the school counselor, or even be able to pay attention to your physical health. All these things can help you, but really pay attention to it and address it early and work together as a family to deal with your anxiety.
So let me ask you, while we're talking about kids here, Dr. James, there's this new data analysis that found that children who are kind, caring, and helpful when they're young are more likely to keep healthy eating habits as teenagers. Help us understand the link here, and how do you teach kids about kindness?
Well, first of all, I would love if all young kids were actually kind and caring and compassionate. I mean, this would just be great, period. And what the study has realized is that the more that young folks are kind and compassionate, that builds self-confidence, that builds the level of them acknowledging that they're able to do good things in the world. And then that also somehow contributes to their ability to say, I want to take care of myself with what I eat and healthy habits. So we want to encourage that early to give them ways that they can help around the house or around the community, and to know that sometimes that can actually help them overall.
So before I let you go, Dr. James, let's talk about procrastination. A lot of folks, myself included, we are guilty of procrastination when it comes to things that we don't want to do, really, right? But apparently, a lot of people put off doing things they actually enjoy. And it's because they're waiting for the perfect moment, as I understand it. So how can we stop that habit and get more joy?
Yeah, so sometimes we might disconnect with a friend, or sometimes we want to go to our favorite restaurant and we say we're going to wait for the right time. But what happens is that right time never really happens. So we keep pushing it off further and further, and we actually don't do it. So the whole point of this is actually don't procrastinate the things that might be joyful. If you feel like it's been a long time, start now, start early, get into it before it becomes too late or never happens. We don't want to procrastinate joy or things that we might enjoy, because sometimes we actually just never get to it.
Start now. Some really good advice when it comes to finding joy. Dr. James, we appreciate you making some time for us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, Elon Musk taking a bite out of the apple over the apps it is not featuring in its app store. Why he says he's planning to sue. And it's an Aldi invasion, the popular grocery chain making big plans to expand. We'll go inside to find out what's behind the hype. Morning News Now. We'll be right back.
We are back with a major shift happening in the workplace. It's been 5 years since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, now more companies are monitoring and enforcing employees' return to the office again.
Yeah, a new report by commercial real estate firm CBRE revealed that 72% of companies are hitting their attendance goals. In fact, the majority say they expect to either stay the same or expand their office footprint in the next 3 years because of business and headcount growth.
We have CNBC correspondent Diana Olick joining us now with more from this survey. Diana, good morning. Super interesting. This is such a talker here. I know at my friends' companies. It also revealed that many companies, they're still hesitant to really kind of enforce this, to make long-term decisions, because there's all this uncertainty around the economy and tariffs. What else did it say about these companies policing and pushing these in-office policies?
Yeah, and good morning. Look, it's all about efficiency and the culture of the workplace. More than half of the organizations surveyed said that they're seeing a lack of what they call office vibrancy on non-peak attendance days, and that's a big challenge. They also said uneven attendance patterns create peaks and valleys throughout the week that challenge organizations to create this kind of consistent experience for employees on a daily basis.
So you mentioned there are challenges there. Which companies seem to be struggling the most right now to meet these attendance goals, and why?
Well, no surprise, it's really the larger companies that are having a harder time getting workers back into the office. That's companies with 10,000 employees or more. Just 22% of them are enforcing their attendance policies, and that's compared with that 37% of overall companies. And that continues to be the biggest issue. It's just that lack of enforcement. How do you get people to get back into the office and not make them want to perhaps quit and go somewhere else where they don't have to?
What are some of the factors that are driving companies' decisions around attendance policies? Like, why is it becoming important to these companies that people come to the office a certain number of days a week?
Well, the overall office use is really going to depend on the type of job you're in. So let's say you're a task-driven job, where you actually need to do something physically in the office. It's going to be a better performer. Now, companies said that call or support centers and company headquarters, as well as those client-facing offices where you actually have to see the people you're talking to in person, they outperformed in their utilization. And it's, of course, just the opposite for the non-client-facing jobs. But employers have to consider job turnover as well as what the office culture is like when you have these hybrid workers coming in and out and how that affects those who are in every day.
So, Diana, what are you seeing when it comes to how companies have changed their workplace priorities since before the pandemic?
Well, it's all about efficiencies now, co-working spaces and the quality of the workplace experience. That's how they get people to stay in the office. You want people to want to come in. But it's interesting, assigned seating is becoming less popular, especially among large employees. Only 25% of companies use assigned seating today, and that's down from well over half just 2 years ago. I don't know about you guys, but I like having my own desk, but apparently that's just not in vogue
If I
anymore.
can assign myself to sit at home, why not do the assigned seating? I'll take that.
Yeah. There's that too.
Good point. It's so interesting. It's such a changing world. There's so many different opinions on this. All right, Diana, thank you so much.
Well, even more business headlines now. A possible tech tussle is loading this morning. Tesla's Elon Musk talking new threats to sue Apple.
And CNBC's Silvana now has that and a bunch of other money news for us. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Aaron. Good morning to you. Yes, so let's start with Elon Musk, who says he plans to sue Apple for not featuring X and his Grok AI chatbot among the top apps in its app store. So in a post on X, he called out Apple for not listing those apps in the must-have section, saying X is the top news app in the world and Grok is number 5 among all apps. Musk says Apple makes it impossible for any AI company other than OpenAI to reach the top spot in the App Store, which he alleges is an antitrust violation. Apple hasn't commented, but it does have a relationship with OpenAI to integrate ChatGPT into its products. AMC's CEO says the company has just scratched the surface on the use of AI. So during an earnings call with analysts yesterday, the head of the world's largest movie theater chain hinted at plans to use AI for pricing, the scheduling of films, and customer service. He says AMC is in talks about making small investments in AI technology companies whose projects are related to the movie industry. And Spirit Airlines could soon be grounded. The low-cost carrier is warning of its ability to stay in business just months after exiting bankruptcy. Now, Spirit's suffering from weak demand for domestic flights, and it is burning through cash. It expects these conditions to persist through the rest of the year. Last month, Spirit said it would furlough or demote more than 400 pilots to save money. It filed for bankruptcy last November. It was the first major airline to do so since 2011, guys.
Wow, a lot to watch from Spirit Airlines now. Thank you, Savannah. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, the discount grocery chain Aldi recently announced plans for a major growth spurt with more than 200 new stores expected to open before the year's over. And it is not just about expansion. Aldi stores are also seeing a rise in U.S. shoppers, a sign that private label products are having a moment. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Goss has been looking into this trend. She joins us from outside an Aldi in Brooklyn. Steph, I have never been into one. I am dying to go. I'm seeing this everywhere. Good morning.
Okay, hey, good morning, Savannah. So this is a no-frills grocery store, right? You have to bring your own bags, you have to buy your groceries, and then fill your own bags yourself. If you want a shopping cart, you better have a quarter on you, because that's the deposit you need to take the cart out. Now, you get it back when you return it. So why are there so many fans putting up with all this? They say it is a small price to pay for lower prices.
These days, lots of shoppers are on the hunt for value, and many are finding it at growing grocery store chain Aldi.
Seriously, Aldi, if you see this, God bless you, because you are really helping me work on a budget as far as my groceries.
With store visits up more than 7% in recent months and plans to open more than 200 stores this year, Aldi will be the third largest supermarket chain with more than 2,500 locations, according to the New York Times. Like its grocery store competitors Trader Joe's and Lidl, Aldi has developed a cult following, with nearly 4 million members in a fan-created Aldi-loving Facebook group, sharing grocery hauls and hacks, to fans posting their review of products on TikTok.
Guys, don't sleep on Aldi. They're chicken. They're like Thai chicken, made with rice and asparagus. Everything is so cheap there, and it's delicious.
A major factor in the hype, Aldi's private label branded products, making up over 90% of what the chain sells in its stores.
This is just a reminder to everybody that is struggling right now in this terrible inflation economy that we're in, and everybody's just trying to survive however they can, that Aldi is literally half-price groceries.
Amidst economic uncertainty and tariffs, the popularity of private labels is on the rise. In recent surveys, more than 85% of shoppers have switched to private label products for at least some of the items they regularly purchase. And nearly 70% of respondents agree they're good value for the money. Value and savings that Aldi's customers are appreciating.
One thing about Aldi's, those prices will always be affordable. And you know what? Whenever I got a loose quarter, I'm going to hit them up.
So, I mean, there are some other draws to this place as well. Part of what Aldi says is that they keep their stores small. And when you think about the superstore grocery stores out there, there may be some decision fatigue maybe on the cereal aisle when you have 10,000 choices. That's not the case at Aldi. They also say that their private label is healthier. They haven't been using artificial dyes since 2015 or so, and they add protein to a lot of their products, Aaron.
You get choice, and everything old is new again in so many places that folks are just drawn to it. It's a good thing. Stephanie, we appreciate it. Thanks. Well, coming up, an unbreakable bond between a boy and his pet goat. That's taking center stage at a state fair at a competition in Texas. The heartwarming video that is winning hearts online. This is Morning News Now. And finally this hour, how one 5-year-old boy and his favorite pet stole the show at a competition in Texas over the weekend. NBC Nightly News anchor Tom Yamas spoke to him about what makes his goat the greatest of all time.
As we zoom in on this goat showing in Kingsville, Texas, meet 5-year-old Milo Garza staring at his yellow ribbon. Just look at that face. Over the moon about winning 4th place, even kissing his little goat, Teddy Bear, and hugging him tightly. We had to know the story behind this video.
I love goats.
Milo and his mom, Elizabeth, telling us how it all went down. It turns out the whole Garza family loves goats.
We feed them, and we work them, and we walk them. We give them water.
But Milo was actually filling in for his big brother. So this was Milo's moment, and he knew Teddy Bear was one special goat.
Milo, if you can just tell me, what's one great thing about Teddy Bear?
His legs.
What about his legs?
They're fat.
There you have it. One of the secrets of goat showing. From the new kid on the block, His mom saying Milo's been working hard, and that moment captured on video, the joy of competition for a 5-year-old boy and his favorite goat.
It was a raw emotion, it was something totally like unexpected.
Yeah.
And just the love that he has for his goats. Milo is a goat lover. He goes outside and he's constantly, kissing the goats, loving on the goats, hugging them. And he's just, they're pets to him, and he can't get enough of them.
Tom Yamas, NBC News.
You got a fourth place ribbon, but a first place personality, attitude, energy.
Squeeze. That was so cute.
Good for him. Congrats. Well, that does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks so much for starting your day with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Aaron Gilchrist. Joe is on assignment today. Right now on Morning News Now, total takeover. An unprecedented move of escalation in our nation's capital coming straight from President Trump. The commander-in-chief ordering the National Guard to temporarily take control of D.C.'s police department, hoping to rein in what he calls bloodthirsty criminals. But Washington's mayor is now pushing back, saying the city's falling crime numbers tell a different story. We'll take you there. Lone Star State horror. Police in Texas on the hunt for answers this morning after they say a gunman opened fire outside of a Target store in Austin. 3 people are dead, including a child. What we're learning about the suspected shooter's history of mental health issues as harrowing stories of survival emerge from that tragedy. Plus, Mother Nature's relentless slog of severe weather impacting millions of Americans this morning, from some hazy heat up here in the Northeast and out west to a flash flooding nightmare washing over parts of the Midwest. Our Angie Lastman is tracking it all for you in just a moment. And Swifties rejoice because the reigning queen of pop has returned. She is teasing her 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, with none other than the Kelsey brothers by her side. How are you holding yourself together right now?
I barely slept.
Barely contained in this moment.
I'm wearing what's called TS12. That's the 12th album. Orange, that's the color of the album.
I see what you did there.
She's releasing it on their podcast. Are you kidding me?
It's going to be, they're going to break the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I bet it is the most listened to podcast, period.
We'll be listening, for sure. We want to begin this hour with the Trump administration. It's seizing control of Washington, D.C.'s police department for the next 30 days.
Yeah, White House official tells NBC News National Guard troops are expected on the ground in the city beginning today. President Trump claims the district has a high crime rate and is being overrun by what he calls violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals. But the decision to bring in hundreds of troops to D.C. comes despite a different story being painted by the mayor there. Recent stats show violent crime in Washington is down 26% compared to this time last year. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake joins us with the details here. Hey, Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Look, President Trump has long complained about what he sees as out-of-control crime in American cities, especially Washington, regardless of what police data and local leaders may say to the contrary. And now he's making a dramatic move to try to combat crime here in D.C. and warning other cities to clean up their streets, or they could be next. Hundreds of National Guard troops are expected to begin deployments on the streets of Washington, D.C. this morning on orders from President Trump, a White House official tells NBC News. The rollout part of the president's unprecedented push to combat crime in the nation's capital.
This is Liberation Day in D.C.
The president signing an executive order declaring a crime emergency in Washington, tapping a never-before-used provision of Washington, D.C.'s Home Rule Act to federalize the police department, taking direct control of it for 30 days. And last night, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth asked how long National Guard troops could be there.
I don't know, weeks, months, what will it take? That's the president's call.
The district's Democratic mayor blasting the move, but saying she sees no legal route to prevent it.
I'm going to work every day to make sure it's not a complete disaster.
Other Democrats calling it a distraction.
This looks to me like an emergency which is manufactured because of a public relations crisis relating to the Epstein file.
President Trump taking the dramatic step after a former member of DOJ was violently assaulted on Washington's streets last week, painting a dire picture of crime and homelessness in the Capitol.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs and homeless people.
But D.C. police statistics show violent crime has fallen the last 2 years, including by 26% so far in 2025. And the U.S. Attorney's Office said in January, overall crime in D.C. was at a 30-year low. The head of D.C.'s police union says those statistics fail to capture the reality on the ground.
That's not the reality that we feel on the streets.
He says D.C.'s officers welcome short-term federal help, but need more officers and changes in local laws to make a difference.
Can you fundamentally fix the crime problem in D.C. in a month?
No, I don't think so. I think you certainly can make an impact on the crime that would normally occur.
President Trump said yesterday he may deploy the National Guard in other cities too, but D.C.'s unique status as not part of any state gives him authorities here he wouldn't have elsewhere, not at least without a robust legal challenge if a governor opposed that action. Guys?
All right, Garrett, thank you so much.
Let's bring in former FBI agent Rob D'Amico now for more on this. Rob, we appreciate you being here this morning. We mentioned that National Guard troops are expected on the streets, obviously, of D.C. Starting today. We saw the troops recently out in Los Angeles. Can you remind us, though, what types of situations do we typically see the National Guard deployed in?
Well, they're not going to have arrest powers. They are, though, going to report directly to the president, unlike you saw in California, where there's a federal court case taking control from the governor. So this is easier for President Trump to take control of the National Guard. They don't have arrest authorities, but they can help local law enforcement, logistics. They can secure buildings. They can actually detain someone until local law enforcement comes and makes an arrest. So having them on the streets, I think, is going to help make people feel safe. Crime is a personal thing. When you look at all the statistics, they are down. But a recent poll in D.C. found that 50% people the citizens still feel that there's a crime problem. So having these National Guard, having these federal agents on the street, I think for temporary time are going to make people feel safer. And that's going to go to a longer strategy. Because if you look at, like, why is this happening now? As the one politician said, you know, it's to deter attention away from something. I think that may be part of it. But also, if you look at Project 2025, it talks about federalizing local law enforcement. And then what was the turning point on this? I think it was the visual of the DOJ employee on the street with bloody, shirt as trying to help protect somebody. I think that was a trigger that they looked and said, hey, this is the opportunity to do this. It came at a great time on the PR side, and it came on a time with something that they wanted to do from the get-go.
Rob, so what does this look like just day to day on the streets? Like you mentioned, making people feel safer. Does it mean anything different, like in the way that police respond to crimes generally? What will this feel like?
It's going to be complicated in the fact that where the high crime rates are you going to put them? Or are you going to put them where they're more visual around the national capital that everyone thinks about? So again, is this totally a media event that you can see people walking around the National Mall and there's extra soldiers there and extra police? Or is it really in the parts of the city that are having crime issues? Are they going to go to the police and really find out where they need it? Or are they going to dictate where they think that it's going to be best on a PR side? But there are going to be more folks out there. They're going to be walking. And again, the more police that you have out there, of course, that's going to deter crime for a short time. I don't think, as they said, it's a long-term solution. But I also think he mentioned about starting to look at this in other cities, and then he can go back to the facts like, look what we did in D.C. We lowered crime, and that's an example to push to other cities.
What role does the D.C. Police Department, Metropolitan Police Department, play going forward then during this sort of a federal takeover? How do they work?
Well, they are used to working with the National Guard and the federal agencies because so many big events, national security events happen in D.C. So they're used to having a big command center, and they're used to having multiple agencies in there doing multiple things. And that's where it comes down on a personal level. The FBI agents in D.C. have worked with D.C. Metro Police all the time. They've worked with the National Guard. So they're used to talking. So on a personal level, I think it's going to be fine because they're just so used to doing it. But I think if we start getting overhead from the federal side, the administration of how to do things, there you might start getting some friction.
All right. Rob D'Amico, we appreciate your analysis on this. Thanks.
Well, let's get to our other big story this morning. 3 people, including a child, are dead after a gunman opened fire in a Target parking lot in Austin, Texas yesterday. Police say the man then stole several cars before they were able to capture him. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson is in North Austin. She joins us now with the very latest. Priscilla, good morning.
Yeah, Savannah, Aaron, good morning. It was a chaotic scene in this North Austin Target parking lot yesterday afternoon as gunshots rang out during the busy back-to-school shopping season. Police say that the suspected gunman has a history of mental health issues, though no word on a possible motive has been released.
The suspect is armed and has shot multiple people.
This morning, a Target store in Austin, Texas, is now a crime scene after a gunman opened fire in the parking lot Monday, killing multiple people.
The suspect is a white or Asian male wearing a Hawaiian shirt, khaki shorts, with a quick draw fanny pack. He is armed with a firearm.
Police say officers arrived within minutes, but 2 people, including a child, were already dead. A third victim died later at a local hospital. The suspected shooter escaped.
The suspect fled the scene, stole a car from the scene, took that car, wrecked that car, then hijacked another car.
Police believe the first stolen car belonged to one of the victims. The suspect, who has not yet been publicly identified, made it to South Austin, where authorities say they had to tase the man before taking him into custody.
We have a male white suspect who appears to be 32 years of age, does have a mental health history.
Corina Navahar works across the street from the strip mall and was grabbing lunch at the same shopping center when she noticed a swarm of police.
I think one of the ladies that was there next to me said that she heard about 5 shots, and then that's when she called the police.
Shoppers and workers inside the Target describing the chaotic moment when the shots were fired and police rushed in.
I hear on the radio, shots fired. I kind of just froze at first, but then, I saw everyone running.
Target saying in a statement, in the days ahead, we will continue partnering with law enforcement and will be providing support resources, including grief counseling, to our team. On social media, the mayor of Austin calling it a devastating situation and a sickening, cowardly act of gun violence. And Savannah, police have not revealed the identities of the victims here. Now, as for the shoppers who were evacuated, police have now cleared this crime scene, so folks are able to return this morning to pick up their vehicles. We did check online, and it says that this Target store is closed today, and Target has not said when it will reopen. Savannah?
All right, Priscilla, thank you.
We want to turn to Pennsylvania now, where investigators are trying to figure out what caused a massive explosion at a steel plant in the Pittsburgh area. It killed 2 people and injured 10 others. NBC News correspondent Adrian Broadus is in Pennsylvania now with the latest. Adrian, good morning.
Hey there, Aaron. Good morning to you. If you look, it's easy to notice the smoke rising from that U.S. Steel plant behind me. It's open and operating, but quite a different story yesterday morning when that explosion hit, killing 2 people and putting this community on lockdown for hours.
This morning, an investigation is underway to determine what caused a massive blast at the U.S. Steel plant in Clairton, Pennsylvania. Overnight, after hours of searching, rescuers recovered the last missing worker from the debris.
Unfortunately, I'm here to report that we do have now a second deceased worker.
Authorities say 2 people were killed in the blast and at least 10 were injured.
They had some type of explosion. They're requesting 2 units to the Maple Gate.
Time-lapse video shows a huge plume of smoke erupting from the factory.
I started hearing sirens, came outside, and there was big black smoke.
Authorities say the plant is now stable and secure, but the full extent of the damage is unknown.
It's a sad day for Clairton, and it's a sad day for the steel workers.
That heartbreak also felt by the family of Timothy Quinn, his sister telling our affiliate WPXI he was one of the workers killed. The facility outside Pittsburgh produces millions of tons of commercial coke, a type of fuel used in steel production. U.S. Steel officials say the factory was in good condition before the accident.
Safety, as I said before, is first and foremost.
On Monday, the thick smoke billowing out of the factory, worrying residents. Officials saying there was no immediate danger, but encouraged everyone within 1 mile of the plant to stay inside and keep their doors and windows closed. This is not the first time there has been a problem at the plant. A fire destroyed the factory's pollution control system on Christmas Eve in 2018 After this latest accident, officials are promising change.
And this morning, at least 5 people who were injured are still in the hospital. They're listed in critical but stable condition. The other 5 who were sent to the hospital were treated and released. Aaron?
All right, Adrienne for us in Western Pennsylvania today. Thank you. And this morning, millions of Americans are under some type of heat advisory that says near record-breaking temperatures are once again in the forecast for the Northeast and the West. And the Midwest is also bracing for the possibility of more storms after deadly flooding forced dozens of water rescues in Wisconsin on Sunday and Monday. In South Carolina, video from a police car dash cam in Charleston shows lightning from a strong storm. It struck a power line there, caused a big explosion yesterday. You just saw that. There were several massive wildfires that are continuing to burn out west and in Canada, all that leading to air quality issues across the country. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is in Lower Manhattan, one of those areas under this air quality health advisory today. Sam, good morning.
Aaron, good to be with you. Look, this is the part of the day where we make you feel a little bit guilty about getting out and maybe not running this morning. Look at all the people behind me you'll see going up and down the west side of Manhattan. They're doing it now, guys, because the window is going to close. This familiar weather pattern that we've seen of temperatures reaching 90 degrees or above, not just in New York, but really greater parts of New England looking at potentially record-breaking temperatures later today. All of that as folks are just really trying to just enjoy their summer right now, guys. But the reality is they're seeing heat, hazy air, and in some cases, violent storms that are standing in their ways. Suffocating heat still hanging over a large section of the country.
The past 2 weeks has been brutal.
With soaring temps in the Northeast, Southwest, and so many places in between.
So hot when you wake up and still so hot when you go to bed, and you're sweating all the time.
More than 20 million under heat alerts Tuesday, from Portland, Seattle, and Las Vegas, looking at triple-digit temperatures to the steamy northern reaches of Maine. In New York, this mom just trying to protect her baby.
I try to stay in the shade. She wears a lot of sunblock and always with a hat and hydration.
The summer scorcher, a split screen, along with shockingly violent storms. This police dash cam in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, capturing lightning, rupturing power lines, and causing widespread outages. But nothing like the nightmare that's washed over parts of Wisconsin.
This is basically a summer's worth of rain in one event.
Milwaukee area residents still drying out after parts of their region saw more than 14 inches of rain over the weekend. The weather challenges also extending to what you breathe, with parts of New York City and the region under an air quality health advisory today.
Either you're trapped in your stuffy apartment in the city, or you're outside where you're trying to get some fresh air, but you can't get it there either.
It is not great options. Now, that health advisory was triggered, guys, when you get to an AQI or air quality index of 100 or higher. It's expected to be about 112 in New York later today. The advisory right now to folks that are in sensitive groups, we're talking about people that have asthmatic conditions or pre-existing lung issues, is to avoid exposure as much as possible outside and to take plenty of breaks. Savannah, Aaron, back to you.
That's some really good advice there. Thank you, Sam.
All right, get indoors, Sam. Stay cool. It's early. We've got more on the severe conditions right now with your Morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman is joining us now to walk us through it all. Morning, Angie.
Hi, guys. Good morning to you. You heard Sam talking about the heat, the air quality. We've got the tropics to talk about. Lots going on. Here's the start of your day today, though, if you live out west or even parts of the south or, as Sam mentioned, parts of the Northeast. We've got heat alerts up. Many of those are focused off towards the West Coast because that's where we've seen that oppressive heat kind of stay in place. And we're going to see it again today. So from the Pacific Northwest all the way down to the Southwest, we've got alerts for those temperatures to potentially see some record highs across that region. We've got 90s for Seattle, triple digits from Reno to points south through Las Vegas and Tucson, and then it's the 90s for Washington, D.C. and up into Portland. We've got those numbers going to run anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees above normal for this time of year. A bit of a break for the Pacific Northwest tomorrow, but still you can see a whole lot of 90s and still some triple digits for the Southwest. And then it's 90s still for parts of the Northeast. And we kind of settle into these summer-like highs as we get closer to the weekend. So expect high 90s in Nashville on Saturday, 90 degrees in Charlottesville on Saturday. And we're flirting really with those upper 80s to low 90s through the end of the work week and into the upcoming weekend in New York City. So because of that, we're still going to look at the ozone issues at the surface here across parts of the Northeast, Boston to New York specifically under those air quality alerts, and then parts of the upper Midwest, not great still with that Canadian wildfire smoke just kind of drifting south. Otherwise, we've got Tropical Storm Erin to talk about. 45-mile-per-hour winds moving west at 22 miles per hour. This is going to likely become a hurricane, but we've got a couple days before it does so. It'll be our first hurricane of the Atlantic season, and potentially down the line, we'll watch to see exactly where that path goes beyond the weekend. So this is a next week kind of thing that we'll really monitor for any potential impacts. But how about some good news? We've got the Perseid meteor shower that is going to peak tonight, guys. Fun. You're going to want, I know, fun, huh? I knew you'd like this. Look,
what time do I have to look at it?
After midnight is when the activity ramps up.
Can't do that twice in a row.
Potentially, yeah, good point. Potentially, you could see up to 100 meteors visible, but we've got a pretty bright moon. That sturgeon moon was full a couple of days ago.
Oh,
so
that was gorgeous.
It was, but that means that the meteor shower isn't all that great. But if you do want to just take some extra time and be patient, out west looks like we'll have the best conditions with clear skies, and parts of the Northeast, too. You'll see some mostly clear skies as well. That smoke, though, and haze across the Midwest, not great. And the rain for the South.
In the middle of New York, can we even see it really anyway?
You know what? No, I've tried so many times. I get so disappointed because too many.
Yeah.
But there will be video from out west.
There will be video.
We'll
have it.
Andrea, I'm surprised you're not in TS12 Orange with me.
You know what? It was so early this morning that I realized my brain wasn't even fully functioning.
Well,
and I'm still trying to take in the news.
Because you're thinking about it. You've got a lot of time to plan.
Exactly.
Thank you, Angie. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including what some key new numbers on inflation mean for your wallet and the future of critical interest rates before the Fed meets again next month. First, though, after the break, it looks like Ukraine's President Zelensky will not be part of that high-stakes Alaska summit between President Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin. We'll break it all down for you up next. We are back with the latest on Friday's high-stakes Alaska summit between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, Mr. Trump is pushing to end Russia's war with Ukraine while touting possible land swaps as part of a potential peace deal. Speaking yesterday, the president also downplayed the expected absence of Ukraine's President Zelensky from the summit. NBC News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent Andrea Mitchell has more.
Overnight, Ukraine's President Zelensky saying we see that the Russian army is not preparing to end the war. They're making movements indicating preparations for new offensive operations. And his military reports more attacks from Russia during the night throughout Ukraine.
Ahead of his high-stakes summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, President Trump predicting he'll know right away whether a deal is within reach to end Russia's brutal war in Ukraine.
At the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. How will you know that?
So far, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has not been invited, which President Trump is downplaying.
He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. You know, he's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened.
Since taking office, the president has swung between confronting Ukraine's leader over the conflict.
You don't have the cards right now.
And criticizing Putin for escalating the war.
But I am very disappointed with President Putin.
On Monday, once again appearing to blame Zelensky for a war Russia started.
I get along with Zelensky, but, you know, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened.
Zelensky and European allies fear the negotiations will favor Russia. President Trump is also raising the possibility of a land swap, but Zelensky has rejected giving up any land Russia has seized.
But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven, and there'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land.
And Zelensky argues Putin is still bombing civilian areas, rejecting a ceasefire. So getting a summit in the U.S. with Trump is already a personal victory. The meeting will mark the first time Putin has been invited to the U.S. outside of the United Nations in 18 years. Meanwhile, President Trump misspoke twice, mistakenly saying he would be traveling to Russia for the summit.
I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal.
And today, a European official with direct knowledge tells NBC News President Zelensky and European leaders will meet virtually early tomorrow morning before a planned joint virtual meeting with President Trump and Vice President Vance. Zelensky then plans a follow-up third meeting without Trump and Vance, but with a larger group of Europeans supporting Ukraine's defense.
All right, Andrea, thank you so much.
In just a few weeks, the latest decision in the Trump administration's immigration agenda could impact several companies who employ non-U.S. citizens. Starting September 2nd, everyone with H-1B and other non-immigrant visas will have to do in-person interviews in their home country to get them renewed. Reporter Alyssa Gord from NBC Bay Area explains the potential impact for workers.
The Department of State had announced several changes to the visa application process.
San Jose attorney Audrea Golding, who is a partner at an immigration law practice, says the latest change from the State Department means most people on non-immigrant visas like H-1Bs can no longer use the popular program that allowed them to skip in-person consulate interviews to get their visas renewed.
Now the requirement will be that the person goes typically back to their home country to apply for that visa.
This is one of many steps the State Department has taken to increase scrutiny on visa programs, often citing national security concerns.
This is going to entail a delay in their processing. It can be costly because they may be stuck, for example, in India or China, and they won't be able to get back to work.
University of San Francisco professor Bill Hing says this will be an especially big challenge for visa holders whose home countries are far away.
It's going to be a problem for the Bay Area, especially because Silicon Valley and other big businesses in San Francisco and the Bay Area rely very heavily on H-1Bs.
According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, California has more H-1B recipients than any other state at 61,000. And of the top 10 companies sponsoring H-1B visas, Bay Area-based Meta, Apple, and Google are ranked 4, 5, and 6.
Right now, I think we're already seeing some indication that there will be a backlog of visa appointments.
Golding expects a surge of in-person appointments at consulates. She says planning ahead will be key, as getting appointments around the holidays will be particularly difficult.
Our thanks to Alyssa Gord for that report. These visa renewal changes will also apply to children and dependents of H-1B visa holders, which means they will have to do in-person interviews as well.
We've got some developing news now out of Sudan, where local rights groups say dozens are dead in an attack on a displacement camp in North Darfur.
NBC's Matt Bodner joins us now with the details on that and other headlines around the world in 60 seconds. Hey, Matt, good morning.
Aaron, Savannah, good morning. The Sudanese paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces launched attacks Monday on a famine-stricken camp for displaced people. It's located outside the capital of North Darfur. At least 40 people were killed in this attack. The group is currently at war with the Sudanese military, and the camp in question is home to almost 500,000 people displaced by an ongoing civil war. Moving along now to the South China Sea, a Chinese warship collided with a vessel from its own Coast Guard Monday while attempting to chase down a Philippine patrol boat. The Philippine government released a video of the incident, which showed a Chinese warship basically cut off the Coast Guard vessel as it pursued the Philippine vessel. The Coast Guard ship's bow was heavily damaged. A nice reminder that coal regs exist for a reason. We'll wrap up this hour in Nepal, which will make 97 of its Himalayan mountains free to climb for the next 2 years. This is a bid to boost tourism to some of the country's more remote areas. Meanwhile, permits to climb the famous Mount Everest will rise to $15,000 starting in September. That is the first increase in nearly a decade. Climbers, take the hint. Back to you guys.
Yeah, for real. Wow. I know. Thanks, Matt.
Well, coming up, the urgent manhunt in Southern California for the pair of armed carjackers that led police on a wild ride through L.A.
Yeah, where search efforts stand this morning and how the duo managed to ditch the cops in one of America's largest cities. That's up next.
We are back now with more on an intense manhunt in Southern California. This morning, the search continues for two armed carjackers who managed to evade police after leading them on a dangerous pursuit. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal has the latest.
But you may be going wrong way. Going wrong way here on the 5 freeway, going southbound in the northbound lane.
This morning, California authorities are searching for the individuals who managed to get away after this dramatic and dangerous high-speed chase. Police processing evidence from multiple crime scenes, including a loaded gun found in one of the stolen vehicles. It began Sunday in Lancaster, about 60 miles north of Los Angeles.
Wow. The officers are saying that the suspects opened fire on them.
Authorities believe two armed men were dropped off before they carjacked this F-250 pickup and shot at its owner before fleeing the scene.
I would say they were organized. They knew what they were doing and they knew where they were going.
Kicking off a chaotic chase that looked like something out of an action film. With news cameras and police choppers tracking them from the air, the suspects took drastic measures to get away, even driving straight into oncoming traffic and threatening bystanders in an effort to switch cars.
Thankfully, that person had their door locked.
Eventually, they forced the driver of this big rig milk truck out of his vehicle and took off again.
The driver said, "I want nothing to do with this. Spare my life."
Semi-truck, white in color. They do have a weapon.
The unfolding drama gripping audiences on TV and social media.
The truck's right in front of me!
Some 30 minutes into the chase, the truck reached the narrow streets of downtown Los Angeles.
Do not engage unless it comes into East Philly area.
Stopping under this overpass to get out of sight. The suspects apparently fleeing in this white pickup before officers could close in. At some point, the suspects managed to switch vehicles yet again.
There's another black vehicle somewhere out there still
disappearing into the night. Now police warning the public to be vigilant.
They're very brazen in what they're doing. They are still considered armed dangerous.
Our thanks to Camila Bernal for that report. The mother of a Georgia police officer who was killed in the line of duty last week is speaking out about her son's legacy. 33-year-old David Rose died on Friday while responding to a shooting at the CDC. It was his first year with the department. Reporter Galat Malamed from our Atlanta affiliate WXIA sat down with his mother.
That's David as a child there.
A child who grew up wanting to help others. Davine Atkinson says her son, Officer David Rose.
He would definitely be the one you would call on if you needed help.
On Friday, the DeKalb County police officer answered the call as a gunman fired at the CDC. Law enforcement would find the suspect at this CVS. Rose was killed.
He was fearless.
First serving in the Marines for 4 years, Atkinson had her concerns when her son wanted to be a police officer.
And I was like, don't do the police yet. You know, don't wait and see because they're very dangerous and lots of stuff. You know, you could get injured or hurt because it's, you know, always crime going on.
He listened, first taking other jobs, then telling his mother he needed something more stable and rewarding, graduating from the DeKalb County Police Academy on March 31st.
When someone calls for help, we don't hesitate.
Outside of law enforcement, Rose was a role model to his younger brother, a husband, and about to be a father of 3.
Always a big smile, and his daughter has the exact same smile on her face.
His oldest is 6 years old.
Her mom said when she went to go tell her, like explain it to her, she said, "Is it about my dad? What is wrong?"
Rose was taken to the same hospital his mother worked at as an ER nurse for 17 years.
Some of the doctors at Emory would have Christmas parties at their house. The same doctor that was working on him, he's been to his house for Christmas parties. It's a big family at Emory, and everyone is so supportive that everyone, like people on different floors, were like, no, it's not one of ours.
Atkinson believes it's because her son spent so much time in that area that it was easy for him to rush there.
Even though he was new to the department there, and he heard that, he would know how to get there quickly. He knows the area. And if you would ask him, he would do it again, he would do it again. That's the kind of person he is. He would do it again.
She says she thanks God there are those like him who run towards danger.
I tell every one of those officers, I thank them for what they do. I literally say that I know when you get up every day, you don't think you're gonna die, but at the same time that every one of us as civilians, thank you for what you do.
Now a community is thanking her son for what he did.
Galat Mohammed reporting there. The motive in that CDC shooting still remains unclear. Meanwhile, employees at that agency have been told to work remotely this week. Well, coming up, new inflation numbers are out this morning. So how is the economy faring in America's fight against rising prices and some lukewarm labor data? Lucky for us, our economic dream team, they're here to break it all down for us. Our own Brian Chung and Investopedia's Caleb Silver, making that money work for you. Joining us next. All right, we are back with some breaking economic data now. In July, inflation rose by 0.2% month over month and by 2.7% year over year. Here to talk more about these numbers and what they really mean for you, NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung and Investopedia's editor-in-chief Caleb Silver. Guys, good morning to you both. Brian, we'll start with you. Let's go over to the big board and walk us through these numbers and how they compare with previous months.
Yeah, well, inflation is picking up in this country. Some of that could be due to the tariffs, but if we just kind of take a look at the number that we just got a few minutes ago, 2.7%. That's how much prices rose in July of this year compared to July of last year. These are the year-over-year rates over the past few months. You can see we're kind of going in the wrong direction. The rate of inflation is going up after what we saw as market improvement since January. Again, we're still lower than that 3%, which is good news. But again, the question here is, where do we go from here? We started to see some of the tariff effects in that June report. Now we're starting to see that in the July report as well. So again, these are things we're going to have to watch for as we get these numbers going forward.
Okay, let me ask you just your reaction to what we're seeing today. And we can't forget the fact that President Trump just fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics last week. So some people are wondering whether we can trust these new numbers.
That's a big question. But this report doesn't surprise, I don't think, any of us that much. If it was very extreme one way or the other, we might call it into question. But now we're calling everything into question. P.S. The president appointing a new head of the BLS, E.J. Antoni from the Heritage Foundation, announcing overnight. So you look at these numbers and you say, yeah, inflation is creeping up. You strip out food and energy, and I don't know why you would, because we pay for those every month, but that core number is very important to the Fed. That's 3.1%, the highest in 6 months. So you're starting to see this creep up a little bit, not as much as we might have thought, given all the news about tariffs, but it's been more noise than news.
So, Brian, Caleb referenced some of the categories here. Break down the price changes for us as you look at it category by category. What are we seeing there?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating report because when you look at some of the key categories that a lot of people spend money on, things like food, between June and July, we're looking at monthly changes now. While it went up by 0.3% between May and June, it went flat between June and July. That's certainly good news, at least not seeing further price inflation on that front, at least for that month. Energy costs even went down by, get this, 1.1% between June and July. Some of that because of the slight decrease in prices at the pump, down about 3 cents per gallon. Shelter costs, just the cost of putting a roof over your head. Again, rent payments are huge for Americans, going up by 0.2%. That's basically in line with what we saw in the prior month. So if you just look at these three categories, you'd probably say, well, then I actually didn't expect the overall headline number of inflation to go up. But for the reason that Caleb just pointed out, when you strip these things out, other types of categories, things that you might buy for your house or things that you might buy in terms of clothing, those did see price inflation. That is the reason why we saw that headline number higher, even though these key categories actually look relatively okay.
And Caleb, we know that there's another Fed meeting coming up a little over a month from now. How did these numbers impact some of the decision-making there? People are wondering whether there might be an interest rate cut.
Yeah, 36 days, 5 hours, and 15 minutes from now exactly is when we'll get that Fed. No, I'm not counting. You're counting. But the probability of a Fed cut has now gone up to about 85% if you look at Fed fund futures. That's probably due to that weak labor report and those revisions from those prior months. But also, inflation is creeping up. The Fed's job, keep prices steady, stable, and keep the labor market at full employment. Both are moving in the wrong direction. Probably time for a cut if it wasn't time last month.
Yeah, and Brian, we referenced tariffs here, right? Because that's always sort of hanging over us. People are thinking about it. What about the tariffs that went into effect last week? Are they having any impact on this data, or is it really too early to tell that?
Yeah, that's the shadow looming over all of this. But again, what we're talking about here is the July jobs report. So this would not have reflected the tariffs that took effect last week. But here are the categories that I'll be watching for as we go into the next few months. And I'll show you the kind of the inflation rates and things that we've already seen. Again, Brazil, 50%, Canada, 35%, Vietnam, 20%, the EU up to 15%. These all kicked in last week, but again, would not have been reflected in this report. So when you take a look at a category like cars, which are a major export from Canada, they went sideways in terms of prices between June and July. Apparel, again, kind of knowing that Vietnam is a major exporter, that did go up by 0.1%, not that much. And EU, I'm picking cheese because that's a major export to the United States. Those costs actually went down by 0.4% during the month, again, underscoring that actually prices were falling prior to those tariffs taking effect. Coffee, this is a major export from Brazil, again, at a 50% tariff rate. You could imagine how expensive it could get. It is already getting more expensive even prior to the tariffs, up by 2.3% just during the month. A big reason for that is because of a drought that was already happening in Brazil. Again, you can imagine that once those tariffs start to take effect, that could get even worse. So we'll have to watch for these types of categories as we go into the next few months.
All right, we'll be watching cheese and coffee. Got it. Brian Chung, Caleb Silver, thank you both. Well, staying in your wallet, on your wallet, General Motors reportedly wooing back former employees for a new project. CNBC's Savannah Hanau has more on that and other money news. Good morning, Savannah.
Hey, Aaron, good morning. Yeah, so General Motors is looking to hire former employees of its Cruise self-driving vehicle business, and it's part of a push to develop a new car. Now, Bloomberg says this new project would be focused on personal vehicles instead of a robo-taxi. GM shut down Cruise last year, and that was following an incident that injured a pedestrian, drawing scrutiny from regulators and ending with the firing of top executives. GM says it's testing human-driven vehicles on public roads to gather data for self-driving technology. An underwear acquisition is in the works. Yeah, the Financial Times reports Gildan is close to a deal to buy Hanes brands for about $5 billion. So the deal could be announced this week, and both companies haven't responded to requests for comment. Hanes has seen its stock drop by more than 40% this year, and the company previously said 75% of its sales have been impacted by U.S. tariffs. And Reddit will block the Internet Archive. Reddit says it's caught AI companies scraping its data from the archive's Wayback Machine, so it will now ban the archive from indexing the majority of its site and forums. It will now only be able to index Reddit's homepage or insights into which news headlines and posts are the most popular. Now, Reddit has a history of cutting off access to scraper tools as AI companies start to use them, but it is willing to provide data if companies pay. It did strike a deal with Google last year.
All right, Savannah Hanau for us at CNBC. Thank you.
You got it.
Well, for years, two friends from southern New England have spent countless volunteer hours during the summers helping people find lost sentimental belongings. From metal to jewelry, they detect everything. Reporter Sam Reed from our Providence, Rhode Island affiliate WJAR has their story.
As the summer months are in full swing, for Best Buds Gary Bonin of Westerly and Wayne Aguiar of Old Saybrook.
We go into Connecticut, we do Rhode Island. I've been in Massachusetts.
A trip to the beach doesn't typically include chairs and umbrellas, but Miracle Maker instruments.
They call me a detector collector because I have so many. I've got 5 in my car right now.
For years, these guys have spent countless hours combing the sands of southern New England.
You name it, if it's metal.
And besides finding what's beneath, the entire process, to them, is rewarding in itself.
When I don't have something to look for, I'm having withdrawals because I really want to go look.
These two turn a lot of heads. Their presence pings peace for people who have lost something.
Occasionally we'll be on the beach and somebody might lose something, come up to you and say, you know, I lost this, can you help me?
Brought to the beach by popular demand, they're an entity, a mobile lost and found.
It's a great feeling. It's adrenaline rush, you know. I mean, it's nothing like, especially when you dig it up and you look at it and say, you know, this is going back to who it belongs to.
Collectively, to date, they've found more than 150 pieces of jewelry as they've dug for diamonds, bands, and other important items.
It doesn't matter to us whether it's like high monetary value. A lot of times the sentimental value means a lot more.
Unlike others who do it for gain, these guys do it in an effort to help people.
The intention is to try to find things to return it to people. A lot of the recreational people, unfortunately, it's like finders keepers. So we're trying to fight that attitude and try to instill like a faith in humanity that there's people that are willing to help.
In fact, when they find buried treasure, but they don't know who it belongs to, they post it online, asking for markings or proof of possession.
You can help somebody out and get back something that means a lot to them. It's pretty special.
And through it all, they've made the day of hundreds of helpless people, all thanks to these men who have hearts worth more than the gold they find.
The tears of joy, the hugs, you can't put into words that feeling. I mean, that's priceless. That's absolutely priceless.
There are still good people out there who just want to help folks. Sam Reed, we appreciate that reporting.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.